All right, guys, coming today from the Lowcountry of South Carolina to talk about two critical things. One is what's happening with the market through the end of July. Some really impressive statistics taking place, shaping the second half of this year. But we want to really dive in on visual strategy. What does that mean to sellers, to buyers, to appraisers, and other people in a real estate transaction, and to you as you're looking at real estate online? So let's get after it. We're coming today with the latest stats through the end of July 2025, and we also want to talk to you about one of the key strategies that we think impacts a lot of players in a real estate transaction, and that has to do with visual strategy. So let's just go through the stats really quickly through the end of July. The number of new listings that came on the market in July, pretty much even with where we were in July of last year. So that's pretty settled. The number of pending sales were actually up 6%. Closed sales up 13%, but what else was up? Average days on market crept nicely up to about 95 days on market for the properties that closed in the month of July. So you're talking about a fair amount of period of time, over 3 months on average, but also we're at 97.5% average sales price to list price ratio. That's holding pretty steady. It's just dripping down a little bit, but it's holding really strong at that well north of 97%. Here's an impressive stat too. The average sales price of property through the end of July for the whole year, year to date, is up 8%, and that's over $800,000 for the overall market area for what has closed this year. Now we know we talked about plenty different segments of the market experiencing different things, but that's the average data throughout the market.
And let me just say something, because you mentioned this, the average days on market is up. Yeah. But that's not a scary thing, because what that also means is properties that have been sitting on the market for a while are getting absorbed.
Yeah.
And once they get absorbed and that's thrown into the data, then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah,
it calculates.
You get that house that's been on for 120 days, that 120 goes into the average, pulls it up, etc. So really, really good point, which could be a good sign, to your point, not necessarily a bad sign that that's a longer day on market. Could be a good sign that some of the stuff that has been around is now being absorbed. So appreciate that. Good point. So we want to talk about visual strategy. It's one of the key strategies that we talk with our sellers about. Visual strategy. What is visual strategy? Visual strategy is so critically important because it pertains to how the property is presented online. We're mainly talking about photography, videography, drone imagery, etc. We're going to go through that, but it's such a critical process because, Chris, you know it. Everybody we ever talk to, we hold our hands and say, "Do you look at real estate online?" Yes, I look at real estate online. When you see no images, bad images, do you swipe left? Do you swipe right? Of course you do. It's meaningful. It's impactful, which is one of the reasons when we talk to folks about, if you're thinking about coming to market, don't have a plan that you want to have the house photographed tomorrow, because a lack of a visual strategy, which we'll go through kind of what those components are, could lead to really failure on your launch of the property. So we want to kind of talk through some of the key steps on that. The first key step is getting fresh eyes on the property. Typically, in our case, that's us. On-site consultation. Look at my house. What do you think? And Chris, we when we sit there and we're talking to people, and our agents are talking with sellers, one of the major couple of buzzwords that people are thinking about is clutter. They're talking about staging. Right? They're talking about what do I need to do to move things around, etc. So let's just talk just quickly about what a typical walkthrough on-site consultation with visual strategy, what does that typically entail? Like when you're talking to folks, what are you seeing and what are you recommending? What are you giving them as homework?
Well, the actual experience of being in a room or something like that, it's very forgiving. Right. So when you're in a room and you're with other people and you can look around, it's very forgiving.
Right.
When you're looking at a static image, it's not forgiving. There could be one part of that photograph that's distracting.
Right.
All the attention's on that.
Yeah, we joke about like the banana on the countertop. Like, why didn't you take the banana off the countertop before you took the picture?
I bet everybody watching this has seen a real estate photo where they're like, why didn't they do that? Why did they have that in there? What's going on?
Toilet seats that are lifted up, floor mats that are in place, like all the things that kind of get distracting.
It is. And I think also, let me just add this real quick as we get started in this video, this doesn't just pertain to sellers.
Right.
buyers as well. I mean, how do buyers use photography? How do appraisers use photography? How do other agents use the images that come through to price other properties?
Right.
So it's so critically important. And we see such a wide kind of slingshot. Everybody's doing things a little differently. So we really focus in and narrow it down. And we've got some tips and things like that I think really help in that situation.
100%. I mean, you go there, you're talking to, so it starts with that consultation, talking to a seller, letting them know why this matters, to your point, all the way down the line, agents, buyers, appraisers, and beyond. And so what do we need to move? What do we need to tuck away? Do we need to paint a wall? Do we need to pull up a rug? Do we need to clean something? What's the camera going to pick up? How far does that reach? What do we need to do outside the home to make sure that we're giving the best impression? And, sometime, like I said, you don't want to call and say, come do that tomorrow, because you might need some runway to get some things done.
It takes a lot of eyes too. One person might miss something.
Right.
So it takes a team of people. It takes people looking at it from different aspects. And it also is helpful when folks that haven't been in a property before, they're able to come in, professionals, and look at things. And how is this room going to be best shot? Is it wide angle? What's the lighting look like? What's the outside weather look like? Are there clouds? Are there shadows? Are there glares? I mean, there's all kinds of things going on.
Is it on water? Do we have to consider whether it's a tide issue?
Sure.
Would it benefit from having a dusk image?
Mm-hmm.
Are there amenities that need to be shot? I mean, one of the little pull back the curtain things is oftentimes we got to go shoot amenities. We've got certain guidelines that are getting tighter and tighter about what can be in photographs, including other people. So the general public, you can't have it. So when can you go shoot the common area pool or the tennis court or the pickleball court, all the way down to even personal photographs or other images inside a home? Are those allowed to be in a photograph that we take of the property? So there's a lot of things that kind of need to be worked through and talked through in order to get that property ready to shoot. And oh, by the way, photographers got to be ready. We've got to be ready to choreograph that and be on site for it. Weather's got to be ready. The seller's got to be ready. So there's a lot that goes into that where you can't just do it willy-nilly.
Sure. And then take drone photography, for example. I mean, we have flight areas. We have an airport nearby.
Right.
Most cities do.
Yeah.
You just can't flip a drone up in the air and start taking pictures. And so they need FAA approval. They have to have an interaction with the tower. So that they have a window of opportunity to go up and get that photo. And that's really important. So we only use licensed, qualified, FAA approved drone photographers and things like that.
We've even had to go and ask for special permission
Absolutely.
from the FAA and the airport for certain circumstances, which that also takes time and preparation.
It really does. And I think another thing with real estate photography from a sales perspective is we're not trying to photo document a house. Okay. So when you look at real estate pictures, what are you thinking about? Every single picture needs to sell the property.
Right.
You don't need to put the closet that doesn't look good or this. You don't need to, you might decide not to include a room.
Right.
I mean, real estate photography is designed as a sales tool in the manner that we typically use it. Now, that works both ways for buyers and seller. A seller is going to want to only put the most compelling imagery up.
Right.
A buyer might want to just realize that and maybe a buyer will decide, I still want to go look at a property, even though it might not have everything that I'm thinking of, because there might be an aspect of that property that's not included in the photography.
You walk through a property a lot more visually forgiving, right? Mm-hmm. Typically, we're not shooting attics unless it's a space that might be able to be expanded. Maybe a garage, if it's what we call like a garage mahal, it's all decked out and beautiful. Okay, maybe you shoot that, but otherwise, it's usually got a lot of tools and things in it that aren't that attractive to even look at.
And how about photo arrangement? How do you sequence the photos? You want the person that's looking at the photos to kind of experience what you want them to experience. So you start here and you move and you transition through the property. If you're random and all over the place, it can get distracting. Someone's looking at something that's distracting, they're not going to look at it for long.
Yeah, that's right. And it's hard. You think on the buyer side, like we're saying, why it impacts that is, if you're looking at a bedroom and then the next shot might be a bathroom, you want to sort of assume that that bathroom goes with that bedroom. And all of a sudden you show up, it's like, no, these were all garbled and jumbled, et cetera. Doesn't make sense. And visually, there's no strategy put forth on that. So, a lot of that then ultimately leads to the photo shoot, which, as we talked about, there's certain parameters that need to be met on that. And then you got to go down, what we've got is a checklist of the kind of the photo shoot and components that we're looking for. The professional static images, high definition, high resolution, multi-layered images that are really compelling and attractive. Are we doing video walkthrough tours of this particular property? What's that going to look like? Are we doing drone aerial imagery? What does that look like? Obviously, view images. Vignette shots can be really powerful. If this has a particularly compelling appliance package or certain features or architectural features, and this if you looked at listings, you love seeing those pieces. It's like, oh, I'm really interested in that house because it's got something neat going on. Amenities, specialty photos, et cetera, all these things that have to go into consideration on the strategy to make sure we come out with the package of information and images that we're looking for.
Yeah, you're using photography to create the experience of the viewer.
Right.
And a lot of times people are only looking at the image. You can write all you want. Sometimes they're reading it, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they read it if they like what they see.
Right.
Then they might explore more.
Yeah.
So that's important. So don't necessarily think that if you've got something written about your property, it's going to be absorbed by the viewer. If there's not a good photo of it.
Picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And so that, I think that whole component is, again, on the buyer side, is what are you trying to convey? What's going to be compelling? What is sufficient to demonstrate the property? And how is that going to kind of look all the way through? And so the next step on the visual strategy from our perspective is a 3-phase review process, which is, and it really might be 4-phase. First is the photographer kind of going through and saying, I didn't take a great angle there. This is a better angle, et cetera. But once we get the deliverable, then we're putting our eyes on it as agents, saying, what do we think? How's the market going to react to that, et cetera? Then we've got our director of marketing looking through that and saying, okay, we got to pare this down a little bit because we've got only so many photos we can do it. And then the coolest part is presenting it to the seller and saying, well, what do you think? And the gold standard for us typically is, I'd buy that house all over again. Like, I'm super proud of it. I can't wait to share the link with someone. And I think that we have the go-ahead to move forward and launch this.
And some people ask, how do my photos that are on my listing or whatnot, how do they populate on other sites? Like, so Collins Group, we come out and do a photo shoot and it goes onto your listing. And then all of a sudden it's on Zillow, it's on Realtor.com, it's on ABC Real Estate Company's website. I mean, how does that all work?
Yeah.
And that's an interesting, it's an IDX feed is what's happening. It's just internet data exchange, basically. And once you put that out there, it's out there for the whole world to see. And so you want to make sure what you put out there is what you want out there, because sometimes extracting that back out, if you put an image, if you rush too fast, if you put an image that you don't like, sometimes it's hard to get that back.
Yeah, and how many shots do you get at a first impression?
Right.
You get one, right? So doing it smart, doing it right, et cetera. And the longevity, so the seller's got to be happy, the agent's got to be happy, the other agents have got to say, boy, that's a really nice presentation. I understand that house. I think I'm going to go ahead and share that house with my buyer. The buyer to see those images saying, boy, that looks really interesting, all the way down to appraisers, even in the middle of the transaction, and later being able to reference it as a comparable and saying, I didn't ever get a chance to see that house. It's closed. It's now occupied by the new owner. They can flip back through this. And if you've done a good job thinking about that aspect as an agent, then they've got that as a tool, and it keeps the wheel going in the real estate.
It's so important, and it's so important to do it right the first time. Don't upload a listing with 1 or 2 pictures or a comment that says photos coming soon or something like that. You lose so much initial momentum right off the bat.
We live in a increasingly visually driven world. Everybody watching knows that. Why? Because you're watching a visual component here. So we know that's becoming increasingly important. And yet you can't just run around with your iPhone and take photos and say, okay, that's going to get the job done. It's a lot more complex than that. So guys, we just kind of want to peel back the curtain on the visual strategy component of what we do. Hopefully it's helpful for you as a buyer, as a seller, as an appraiser, and otherwise. And as always, we appreciate your attention and interest in our videos.